saw the
Good work,
tweets live,
everyone.
but I was watching delayed, and I was like, "Oh, that's funny. I wonder what that's about." And then I saw it happen like an hour later, and I was like,
Oh yeah.
"Oh,
Oh.
YouTube, hello, by the way."
Is it this one? No, it's not that one either.
All right. Are we? I didn't check. I think we're live. Looks like we're live.
Oh, I can check.
I think we're good.
Yep, we're up.
All right, nice. Thanks. I don't have my screen pulled up. That's all right.
Who keeps... I don't want to do that. Okay. Army, Navy. Ooh. All right. I am good whenever you guys are.
Sweet. I think I'm good.
Yeah.
I should be good.
All right. Check. 1, 2, 3. I think. Am I? I'm probably not. No, I'm good. Okay. Checking audio levels here. All right.
Aaron, do you guys want to talk about the playoff matchup? I was thinking, honestly, we kind of hold off on talking about the actual matchups.
Yeah.
They're so long from now.
Yes.
Like, we're going to have a ton of time to talk about, like, the actual semifinals.
Yeah, I was planning on just kind of mentioning it, but not like, not going into detail at all. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm with you on that.
Because it's a month away. I feel like there's...
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure I was on the same page there.
Yeah. No, that's what I was thinking too. All right, I can get it started. Welcome to the Fifth and Goal podcast. My name is Aaron. I am joined, as always, by my good friends Josh and Johnny. We are back for episode 90. It is a pleasure to be back with you, gentlemen. Good to see you both. Josh, busy week in sports, but before we get to all of that, you know what it is. Yeah, how was your week, man?
Busy week in sports. It's been great. Speaking of 90, Dallas is heating up again.
Oh.
We love it. Is December 5th when we're recording this, and so clearly that means that we are in peak fall colors down here. It was supposed to be 75, but in the sun it felt closer to 80. My body doesn't know, but now it's dark, but it's also dark now. So my body doesn't know what to do. It will implode at some points. That day is not today. By the time this podcast goes up, I may have already exploded.
Wow.
But for now,
hey, but you made it 90
got to-
episodes. If this is the end,
I
you
made it 90 episodes. If this is
That's
the end,
pretty
it's not a
darn
bad
amazing.
episode. Yeah. It's I'm wearing shorts in December. Who knew?
Yeah.
Now, coming from the Midwest, it's not wearing shorts in December is normal, depending on what grade of middle school you're in or what the temperature is.
That's so true. Yeah.
Hoodie shorts.
Yep.
Classic.
It's true. Johnny, what's up, man? How was your week?
Soccer is dominating the schedule still. So 2 more round of 16 games today, 2 more tomorrow, and then the first time in like 2.5 weeks of no soccer will happen on Wednesday, and I don't know what I'll do with myself. So
yeah, have you slept at all since there's no more 5 a.m. wake up calls?
I've started to catch up on that sleep.
Well, that's
it's
good.
It's hard to readjust after a couple weeks of that 5 a.m. wake up call.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good. Yeah, my week was also good. Filled with sports, filled with college football on Saturday. There was a bunch of interesting NFL games on Sunday, and of course, yes, World Cup sprinkled in. We can, I guess, start with the bad news. Of course, the U.S. falling to the Netherlands 3-1. Before that, I guess it's been. I guess we had a
that
quick
means,
preview
guys,
for you, but what does that mean, Josh?
It means Americans are going to immediately forget about soccer for another 4 years.
So it's funny you mentioned that, Josh, because I had a question.
I have no clue
for both of us.
I've already forgotten.
Johnny, I know the answer to this. Johnny watches soccer year round. I'm curious, Josh, and I know the World Cup's not over, but having watched some of these U.S. games, do you feel like you are more likely to watch soccer, less likely, or just the same?
Oh, I'm definitely more likely to watch soccer. I think one of the things that really helped this year was, now first off, being from Columbus and being part of hashtag Save the Crew.
Yes.
Like, I might be biased anyway, given the average American sports watcher. But in reality, I think that what the U.S. was able to do, it's young guys. Johnny, you're going to know them
Yeah.
better than I would, but these are really, really young guys given the international stage, and they held their own well enough, given the fact that we really don't have a true striker,
Yeah.
or at least a striker that Johnny would like.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right
Yes.
about that.
You know, I was talking to friends. I have a friend who was born, I believe, somewhere in South America, and she's a big Brazil fan. And
Didn't they have a good day?
Yeah, good day for her.
Yeah.
Today. Wow.
yeah, so she's been having a great time. But she said something that was really interesting. But I think something that I will be changing as the U.S. progresses. And again, all to say is short answer, yes. I think me personally and large scale, this is going to promote more soccer watching, casual and otherwise, across the nation. I think they did well. They held their own with young guys. I think there's nowhere to go but up. I don't want to say, oh, they have a bunch of potential, because that's like one of the worst. My dad always said that's one of the worst compliments you can give someone. But there was a lot of good things. I don't know if we expected the U.S. to quite do what it did. Losing 3-1 to the Netherlands, sad. That last goal was embarrassing.
Yeah.
But like overall, this is a net positive. One thing I noticed, and Johnny, you've probably talked about this too at length. One of the things my friends from Brazil said is, she's like, and again, it's also Brazil. Brazil, this is a common mindset. She's like, man, they just play such a beautiful game of soccer that, when you're looking at the U.S. in comparison, it feels boring to watch. Now that's also, you can talk about the debates between what South American versus like maybe more of a European soccer style, where there might be a little bit more flourish in certain countries that is just natural to how they like playing, versus maybe a little bit more of a kind of get in and get it done style of something more like Germany or whatever. But like, given some time to develop like a uniquely American style of playing, whatever that looks like, if that even is something that's necessary, developing these young players, getting them more experience, getting them more play time. Like, I think overall, this is a very good place for the U.S. to be in.
Yeah.
I think we'll have to see what viewership of what's going to be interesting. And again, we're not here to talk politics. That's our other podcast of three white guys talk about politics. But
because those don't exist.
Those don't exist. We're really, there's a niche there that I think
we're missing out on. Yeah.
Yes. One thing, and Johnny, you can speak better into this too, but one thing that I'd be curious to see, would be interested in looking into and following is, do Americans care enough about like how international soccer plays out to continue watching the World Cup? Obviously, there's going to be some drop off. Period. U.S. is no longer in it.
Yeah.
It's like watching, but it's also like it's the equivalent of like watching a national championship or Super Bowl when your team's not in it. Are you going to watch it just because you're there for the game? And so we're obviously not going to do that this year. But the hope would be, as this develops, like the U.S. can develop. Historically, the U.S. is, and we joined in last week with, it's called soccer.
Yes.
The U.S. is historically, stereotypically, not that interested in other countries, just in general. And so it'll be interesting to see how American sports watchers react to how the World Cup goes, how international soccer goes. Again, a lot of American watchers have no problem watching a national championship or Stanley World Cup finals or World Series or, especially Super Bowl. Simply because there is an enjoyment of the game, there's an atmosphere around it that's like creating the culture to watch something like that. So that doesn't exist yet in the States, but I would hope to see something like that continue. And I think the U.S. did a really good job starting that, hopefully.
Yeah, well said.
Also,
all of that.
this is the longest that's the longest I've ever talked about soccer.
Well done. I mean, that's a perfect answer to that question then. Josh, really well said. I think Johnny and I agree with everything as far as the youth of the team, potential, even though you're right, we want a little bit more than potential. But again, a reminder, 2026 World Cup is hosted in the United States as well as Canada and Mexico. Real quick,
come on to Dallas. We'll
Yeah.
host something fun down here.
Yeah, I'll add my 2 cents, and then Johnny, over to you because I know you want to react about this. I will also say this will. I think it's easy for me to say now in the middle of the World Cup, but overall, I do think I'm going to watch more soccer after this. Now, if you've been paying attention to this podcast, you've been an avid listener. You know that a few months ago, I sat here and said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get into the Premier League. Send me teams. You guys did great. You sent me teams, and I watched none of them. I couldn't really get into it. I personally had a hard time rooting for a team over in England, a city I've never been to and really don't have any concept of other than pictures. That shows you how uncultured I am, maybe. But the point is, I had a hard time like really getting behind a team. Like, why am I rooting for this team? But I realized that, and I've been a very, very casual fan of the Columbus Crew. There's an MLS team in my backyard. Is the level of play different? Yeah, it's probably going to be jarringly different when I watch the MLS compared to the World Cup. But it's a team in a city that I love, and I'm excited to get into it. And also, I mean, there's players like Messi who are coming to the MLS. Like, the MLS is on the rise. They've obviously added, we've talked about this before, they've added a bunch of franchises. So I think it's on the rise and hopefully moving up even more with what the U.S. did in the World Cup. Although the result in the end wasn't great, clearly there's some momentum moving forward. So I think that's where I'm going to kind of channel my soccer outlet. Is I'm going to try to focus more on the MLS. Also, it helps that upcoming next season, all of the games will be available on Apple TV, which, yes, it's another streaming platform, but all the games are now in one place where you can watch them all.
No
that was not the
blackouts either.
Case previously.
No blackouts.
And no blackouts. Amen.
That's the key there.
Yes.
No
so
blackouts.
I have no issue there. So anyways, that's my thoughts on soccer, but over to you, Johnny. What'd you see on Saturday, and maybe your takeaways so far on what we've seen in other games?
Yeah, obviously Saturday did not go how I hoped for, or even exactly how I expected. We'd been so good defensively in the run of play, and there was just some lost marking. That is really the only way to explain that. And there's a lot of criticism going Greg Berhalter's way as the manager. That's always going to happen. Truthfully, this is a young team. We've said it a lot, and I hate continually giving excuses, but it's not an excuse, it's a reason. Nobody other than Yedlin had any World Cup experience on this team. And the expectation was to get out of the group stage, and they met expectations. They didn't exceed them, but they met them, and I'll take that. Going forward, 4 years we're hosting. My encouragement to everybody else, because I really want to focus more on the future rather than that Netherlands game. I think that Netherlands game was a reminder, and it was a necessary experience to have to play England and play the Dutch in this World Cup cycle, to see what it looks like from a managerial standpoint down to the 26th man on the roster. What does this look like to be a full team, a world-class team that has the talent and skill and can play clinically enough to win games and potentially win the World Cup? That Dutch team probably won't win the World Cup. They're plenty good enough to do it. That's two different things. Well, let's talk more about the future. A lot of players, one, made themselves probably a lot of money on this U.S. national team. Two, we have a lot of international clubs all over Europe that are interested in getting these guys. Now, some of them are already over in Europe, but they're at smaller clubs. They're probably going to have the opportunities to get elevated and be transferred or put on loan to other clubs. Or they're still over here in the States, and we might be able to send them over there. And that's amazing. We need them to have that experience. That's why this team was better than the team 4 years ago that failed to qualify, as that was an older team and a team that was too many MLS players. Even 4 years ago, the MLS was much worse than it is. It's exceedingly growing, but we still need those players over there playing in Europe. So that would be my encouragement to those of you who got a little bit of got a small dose of international soccer and really enjoyed it. One, like Aaron said, you have the MLS in your backyard. Is it the World Cup? No, but you have a connection to the city. You love your city. All of your local sports teams go cheer on those games and help yourself learn the game a little bit more and enjoy it as we get ready for the World Cup. 2, follow our national team players as they're playing on those clubs abroad. This is a great chance for you to really get invested in. If you need to pick a club, Leeds United is a great one. We have Aronson on that club. Pulisic might get moved from Chelsea, wherever he goes. Look at him. Weston McKennie's over there. Musa's going to get moved. Look at those guys. Did you have like a favorite guy over there? Tyler Adams, perhaps. Pick them out, find out what club they're on, and make that your international club team. Follow them as we go throughout these next 4 years. You'll have a great time. You'll learn the game a lot, and it gives you just a reason to kind of latch onto a team, and your enjoyment will grow as you go. So it was a fantastic experience. I think the team was really mentally and physically exhausted coming into that game.
Yeah.
The 2 main issues I have, and you guys have mentioned this, is first off, we don't have a striker. Memphis Depay really came in, and he was the difference in that game against the Dutch. And he missed the first 2 games in the group stage, and he was all the difference in the world to that Dutch attack. So really, they're missing that goal scorer, that guy you can rely on to get goals. Even the goal in the game was pretty much on accident. So we need that true striker. Also, depth. With 5 subs, depth is so important now. You're not going to sub out your goalie so you can replace half of your players on the field in reality. Depth was severely lacking in this tournament. When they had to go to the bench, quality severely dropped off. When that should be the opposite. You have fresh legs. You should be coming in. You should be able to at least keep that same level of play. So that's going to be crucial as the U.S. prepares for the next World Cup in 4 years. The one other thing that I would ask, because this isn't about critiquing the U.S. Overall, I'm relatively pleased with the outcome of the World Cup for them. We need more opportunities to play the best in the international soccer community and not have to wait for the World Cup. Over in Europe, they have the UEFA Nations League where all the European teams are playing each other. They have the Euro Cup, and they have the qualifiers for the Euro Cup, of course. So they get all this opportunity to play some of the best competition. No offense to our North American brothers over here, but Canada was at least in the World Cup. Mexico was in the World Cup. But we spend a lot of time playing Trinidad and Tobago and playing Puerto Rico and playing Jamaica. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't, but we need to have more opportunities to play the best in the world, because training with the best, playing against the best is what helps you get better. And I would love for them to have those opportunities. Hopefully they can get something done, maybe with the South Americans, and that would be a brilliant way to elevate the play for everybody over here in the Western Hemisphere. So would absolutely love for them to get something done similar to the UEFA's Nations League over in Europe. I think that would be incredibly helpful for the U.S. soccer team, just to have that experience, more time playing together against fantastic competition, which if you watch the game today, Brazil against Korea, you saw that on display. But that is how the U.S. national team can get better, is having those opportunities to play Argentina, to play Brazil, to play Colombia, to play Chile, to play Peru and Uruguay. There are so many quality opponents down in South America, and that's not a time zone issue. And they're much closer and easier to set that up with than Europe. So I would love for them to be able to get something like that done. That's what I'm hoping for. We've been expanding and growing in different tournaments and events in soccer in the last decade, and I hope that's the next thing on the docket.
Yeah, I agree. I think that could be really valuable, and we'll see. A little less than 4 years from now with this late start to 2022. So save your pennies, because there's sites all over the U.S., mostly at NFL stadiums, but should be an exciting time. We'll see if we can, maybe by then we'll be big enough that we can just use the ad.
We'll have our own press box.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just exclusively us. So that's the goal. We'll work on that. All right. Well, the other big news that happened over the weekend, in addition to just all of the college football conference championships, the college football playoff top 4 was announced. And in the end,
I would personally like to thank
USC
and TCU, but specifically USC.
Utah. Thank Utah, not USC. Thank Utah, Josh. Be grateful.
You could also thank USC for just
Armando.
not knowing how to tackle whatsoever. I mean, that team looked like they didn't practice tackling the whole season. My God. Now, again, all the credit in the world to Utah. It's very difficult to beat a team twice in a season. And now the Utes have done it in back-to-back years. They beat the brakes off of Oregon twice, and after that 1-point win, for Utah in the regular season, they just pummel USC. So you're right, Josh. In the end, it ended up being really simple. There was a lot of people trying to make a little too much drama about Alabama, and quite frankly, they're not really worth our time to discuss in terms of their place in the top 4. If you want to get in, win more than 10 games. So
also win more than 10 games convincingly. Don't be 3 plays away from having 4 losses. Yeah, don't have your best win be Texas.
Well, and there you go. Because all the arguments, for whatever reason, and I do not understand this and don't think it should happen, but Fox had Nick Saban on in the halftime of the Big Ten championship game for him just
unbiased.
To basically give his spiel as why Alabama belonged. But it kind of backfired because Nick Saban kind of has his hands tied because they really don't have a great resume. So I think him explaining everything actually maybe had the alternate effect where everyone's like, oh yeah, you guys don't deserve it at all. Like, I don't think there was any doubt or any question in it. I don't know.
Don't blame Saban though.
No, not at all.
That's exactly what he should do.
Absolutely.
But if you're Fox, okay, you're going to bring on Nick Saban. Where's Ryan Day? Where's Sonny Dykes?
Yeah.
Like,
and do it if you're gonna do that. Do it at your big noon kickoff or whatever. Don't do it at halftime of the Big Ten championship game. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I hated that.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Good job,
Anyways,
guys.
didn't matter. Alabama's out. We can clap for that because unless they miss it again last year, this will be the last time you ever see Alabama not in the playoff with this new expanded playoff coming in 2024. We can yell about that later, and I probably will. But so there's your top 4. Georgia and Ohio State playing in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. That's at 8 p.m. Eastern time on New Year's Eve.
It's not a conspiracy.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's not a conspiracy. Can I just be, why does Georgia play all these home games essentially?
It's funny. This is going to be the 3rd game in Atlanta. They opened the season, their neutral site game against Oregon and won the SEC championship there on Saturday. Now they play there yet again.
And again, it's just geography. There's no grand conspiracy.
Yeah.
Ohio State is playing an away game.
Yes, 100%. So the other matchup in the Fiesta Bowl is Michigan versus TCU. That's at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So that's the first game. So really no need to dig into those games. We have like 4 weeks until we get to those games. So we're not going to spend the time yet. Obviously, we'll get into those matchups as we get closer. We'll follow along news such as Jackson Smith and Jigba saying he is out for Ohio State. Looks like that injury that has plagued him all season will keep him out of the playoff as well. So he is headed to the NFL. But guys, what's happening this week is the Heisman Trophy will be awarded. And breaking news, for us at least, the finalists were just announced. So here's the top 4 finalists for the Heisman Trophy. CJ Stroud, Caleb Williams, Max Duggan, no surprise with those 3. And then Stetson Bennett snuck his way into the top 4. And look, there's a lot of slander in Stetson Bennett. He has been really, really, really good this year. But he's not a Heisman top 4. You know who else is? Hendon Hooker from Tennessee is. Michael Penix Jr. from Washington should have earned that top 4 spot. I would argue Blake Corum should be above Stetson Bennett. I get it.
Aaron,
he's the quarterback of the best team, and that
Stroud.
gets you a trip to New York automatically. But I don't know. And don't get me wrong, none of the players I listed were going to win the award, but they were at least deserving of New York over Stetson Bennett. But that being said, guys, thoughts on the Heisman, because it's wild. It's wide open. You thought Caleb Williams had a chance to slam the door on Saturday night. He gets banged up. USC gets blown out. Max Duggan, then you thought maybe, well, he's been close the whole way. Maybe there's a chance that he can pull it off. And he played well, an incredibly gutsy performance against Kansas State. But ultimately, Kansas State was the team taking home the hardware, winning the Big 12 conference. Johnny, I know you've got thoughts on this Heisman, and you've got a winner that not everyone's picking. So who you got and why?
Well, first off, Hendon Hooker should not be penalized for getting injured and missing 5 quarters of the regular season.
Yeah.
And that kind of throws him out of New York. This happens almost, I feel like, often where a player gets injured and then it's like, well, they can't win the Heisman now. Bull crap. Hendon Hooker was easily one of the 4 best players for the entire season. Like, he should be in New York. No slander to Stetson Bennett. Also, CJ Stroud shouldn't be there ahead of Hendon Hooker. I'm sorry. I think that is clear as day. And I'm a Ohio State fan, but CJ doesn't have the moments this year, despite having the stats. You have to have moments as a player to win the Heisman. It's not an MVP award. It's supposed to be the most outstanding player. My winner is Max Duggan. I know most people will vote for, Caleb Williams. First off, also, and maybe we'll touch on this later, if you're a voter for the Heisman Trophy and you voted before the last games were played, as you were able to, which I don't understand why the voting's even allowed to be open before Sunday after the championship games. If you voted beforehand, you should be stripped of your vote. Straight to jail. You're right, Josh. You have no business voting for any awards anywhere in college football. It's just like the AP voters. What are we doing? You don't have to do this. You don't have to vote. You are opting into. It's an honor to do it. The responsibility of that honor is to watch the games, and all of them that you can. It is lazy to not wait and watch all of these games. I'm voting for Max Duggan. And for me, it's either Caleb Williams and Max Duggan. There's really not a third option here in my mind. I'm voting for Max Duggan, one, because look at where TCU is this year compared to last year with him. And he dragged his team to the playoff. Caleb Williams, fantastic year. So don't hear me saying like Caleb Williams is terrible. That's not true. But you didn't make the playoffs. You didn't. Max Duggan got his team there. It's not a stat award. Not all stats are created equal. That team lives and breathes Max Duggan. He is the most important player, I believe, in the entire country for any team. And call me old school if you want. I really was rubbed the wrong way by what Caleb Williams did with his nail polish. That's not enough for me not to give you a Heisman. But when I'm, I don't know, trying to nitpick and find the littlest things in the world, and the award's supposed to be an honoring thing, and you see Max Duggan after the game just absolutely gutted, and you couldn't have watched that Big 12 title game and not just been like, this kid would go play on a gravel street if somebody had a torn up football if you let him and said, let's play some football. I feel like Max Duggan is everything that's fantastic about college football, and I want to see him get the Heisman. I think he deserves it. He won't get it because he plays quarterback for TCU instead of quarterback for Texas or Oklahoma or USC, but he absolutely deserves to win the Heisman. Caleb Williams had a fantastic year. I think Max is more deserving.
Johnny, I echo all of that. And to be clear, if you follow us on Instagram, and you should, we posted kind of if we had a vote for these awards, we posted who we would vote for, and we posted Max Duggan, and I wholeheartedly agree. And we posted several other notable college football awards that are given out at the end of each year, including, I should give him a shout out because his team went undefeated in the regular season. Sonny Dykes, what an incredible transformation, turning that team around at TCU. And I know this argument can be said for Caleb Williams, but what would TCU's record be if Max Duggan isn't on that team? Caleb Williams has a tremendous year, and I'm not upset that he's going to win the Heisman. I'm fine with it. My preference too would be Max Duggan. But how many games this year was TCU down and Max Duggan led the charge and came back? And maybe it's unfair to Caleb Williams, like, hey, you won more blowout games, good for you. But I agree. If you read, and I'm trying to find it and I can't, and if I find it, I'll shout it out. But kind of the inscription or the actual definition of what the Heisman says goes to a winner. If you read it, at least to me, my first thought is Max Duggan. He just jumps out to me. And you're right.
Yeah.
It's a petty thing, but if you write F the team you're playing on your fingernails, I don't love that. And now maybe that motivates him. Maybe that motivates his team to play better. Sure. But I don't know. Am I being too nitpicky? I don't think so. If again, you're right. If we're kind of
really splitting hairs.
Yeah, exactly. If we're splitting hairs, then maybe that makes me lean towards Max Duggan. I just think the leadership.
I point this out too.
Yeah.
Remember, TCU plays everybody in their conference.
Yes.
And this is not Caleb Williams' fault, but they played everyone. And like you said, he had multiple Heisman moments of pulling his team up seemingly from the grave to a victory. I mean, that Baylor game was insane. The amount of plays he made on that drive. I believe one drive against Kansas State, it was like a 88-yard touchdown drive, and Max Duggan accounted for over 100 yards on the drive because of penalties. Like,
Yeah.
it was crazy. But he played everybody in his conference. Don't forget who USC dodged this year. And not from, like, Caleb Williams didn't decide this, but they didn't play Oregon. They didn't play Washington this year. Like, they missed two of the best teams in their own conference this year. If you win those games in addition, your resume looks a little fuller to me. Again, we're completely nitpicking here. Like, it's not fair what we're doing, but there isn't one runaway winner this year. So we're going to have to kind of tear these guys' resumes apart. What you said though, Aaron, I love the best. Max Duggan is the first person you think of when you read the description of the award. And that should be how you vote, in my opinion.
Too many people either, clearly, with Stetson Bennett being invited to New York, take the quarterback from the number one team in the country and give him a vote. Or alternatively, they just look at the box score and say, this guy has fancy numbers, let's vote for him.
Yep.
If you still have Drake May, and with all due respect to Drake May, he's a freshman. I think he's going to be tremendous with North Carolina or wherever he goes because it's just free agency now. If you're still voting for Drake May, whose best win is against Wake Forest and looked not great in four of their losses, they lost their last 3 games, then you're just box score watching. I can't help you at that point. I really can't. You're not watching the games. Doesn't mean he may not. I mean, he'll be a front runner for the Heisman next year, and he's deserving of that. But at some point, we had the same criticisms with the college football playoff that they don't watch games. Now, I do think they got the top 4 teams right, but same thing with the Heisman votes. If you, again, straight to jail. We're going to have a new segment on this show called Straight to Jail. Straight to jail. If you do any of those things I mentioned, vote before the games are over. That's insane. You go straight to jail. You just blindly take the number one quarterback from the number one team. You can't tell me Hendon Hooker was the number 5 quarterback in college football this year.
No.
You can't tell me that. And
Aaron,
I'm with you. He's above CJ Stroud. He absolutely is above CJ Stroud on that list.
You can't tell me Stetson Bennett's a top 5 player on his own team. He's not.
I might say bottom 5.
Okay, maybe he's 5.
Yeah, he's 5. He's 4 or 5.
5 then. Like, maybe he's number 5 on his own team. I can't have that.
Yeah.
I can't have that. Invite Jalen Carter, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
That'd be fine. I'd be more okay with you inviting Jalen Carter. Why does it always have to be a quarterback? Why are we so obsessed with the quarterback position?
Yeah.
They are vital. They're important. You can't win big games without them. But it's like the NFL MVP race. Maybe we'll talk about that later. Micah Parsons is one of the 5 most valuable players in the entire league, and no one's talking about him for the MVP. It's just 5 quarterbacks that you like this year. Open your minds. There are far more important players on the field for certain teams. Like,
yeah,
it's a shame this year. My heart almost hurts that we don't have a great defensive player because they would have won it this year. And so that's frustrating. I would have loved to see a defensive player win the Heisman, but anyway, Max Duggan.
Yeah.
Vote for him if you haven't already. I don't know if the votes are due.
Johnny, you can't. A defensive player can't win the Heisman, and I'll tell you why.
Uh-oh.
Never once has any defensive player ever done the Heisman pose just in their normal gameplay. The only people who do that are offensive players, and specifically quarterbacks. Every day, every single Saturday, every quarterback does this once.
Yeah, you're right.
What I'm hearing is Georgia needs to hand the ball off to Jalen Carter more often.
Well, that's what they did with Jordan Davis last year.
That is the true solution.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you see with Ed Oliver at Houston back in the day, like they were doing all sorts of things. That's what they do, and I have no issue with it. I'm all for it.
That play with Jalen Carter, though, if if you haven't seen this play, it was, of course, trending on social media against LSU in
Oh
the
my
SEC
gosh.
title game, where he literally picks up Jaden Daniels with one arm, and the other arm he's just pointing to the sky like, I got him, guys. Like, just picks up the quarterback rather than tackling him, and is holding him with one arm. And you just watch that, and you're like, oh my goodness, Georgia's got some dogs, man. They're that is the best team in the country, and that might be their best player. That might be their best player too.
Yeah, I think so. Well, we can move on from this subject. We have said our piece. We think it's Max Duggan. I'm okay with Caleb Williams, but man, Duggan is he's not going to win, but he deserves more credit than he's going to get.
Deserves it.
Yeah. All right. Other news.
Speaking of straight to jail.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Or
go
wait,
ahead.
are we gonna hold on?
No.
Actually, let's make this as a piece.
Yeah.
Are we making this? This is an actual new segment.
I think so. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Then I shall save. We'll do the transfer portal or coaching carousel, all the fun stuff. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. All good. All right. Other news, college football. John, I know you're going to talk about the transfer portal now. I will just say a record, like we shattered the record for most players entering the transfer portal. Basically, if your team's not one of the top 4, and maybe even if they are, your entire team's probably gone. That's a little bit of an overstatement, but in some teams, not really. It's absolute madness. The coaching carousel continues. I will talk more about that and what we're following. So Johnny and I have both queued up college football for you and what we're following. But yeah, that's kind of the news around college football. Except, Josh, there was one more thing, a deep conspiracy. We talked about sending people straight to jail. Welcome to this new segment of our podcast called
Welcome to
Straight to Jail.
Straight to Jail. I was originally to pull out the conspiracy theory clock, the conspiracy corner clock. We're going to keep it over to the side where it belongs for now. But guys, I think, was I the only one? Though you were watching it on time delay, Aaron.
I was, yes.
But I was watching the SEC championship live because after already knowing TCU and the USC, I was just, you know what? And Michigan wasn't on quite yet. Oh, by the way, just you guys did a really good job, Purdue. I appreciate what y'all did in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
You got me excited. They did exactly what we thought they would do, but for a little while, my Michigan fan roommate was a little nervous. And I'm like, that's all the spoiler makers can do. Anyway, just quick shout out to them. During the halftime of the SEC championship, there was the Dr. Pepper tuition challenge, whatever they call it.
Mm-hmm.
If you've never, and this as a newer Texan, I feel very, very close to. I'm actually objectively an hour away from the Dr. Pepper factory, but you throw footballs through a big Dr. Pepper bottle, and you do the most of them, and you win $100,000. We can talk about the ramifications of a $54 million company giving away $100,000 to just one person. That's a separate issue. That's honestly not the scandal we're talking about. The scandal that we're talking about is one of the most Deus Ex Machina, and somehow Palpatine survived levels of retconning that has ever existed. There were 2 women who were vying for this one thing during the halftime. Dr. Pepper, I don't even know what it's called. You get $100,000 if you throw footballs through a bottle. It was Reagan Whitaker. Actually, no, first it was Kayla Gibson from the University of St. Augustine. And then there was Reagan Whitaker of Baylor University. You get, a minute, 30 seconds to throw as many footballs through as possible. At the end of that first series, they had tied at 11. To be fair, Kayla got her 11th in about a second before, but they don't care about that. It's just the end of time. So at the end of time, they were both at 11. So they went into overtime. Half the amount of time, just go for it. They tied again at 7. However, all of a sudden, all the refs start pointing to Kayla from Baylor, saying, oh, she won. And she was shocked, too. You can tell she's like, oh, we're going to have to go into another overtime. Well, the announcer said, because Reagan won the tiebreaker challenge the day before,
Boo.
she was counted as the winner. The entire stadium erupted into boos. I feel so bad for Reagan, but yes, they should have booed.
Yes, they were not booing Reagan, to be clear.
They were not booing Reagan. They were booing And this is why I almost put out the conspiracy corner clock.
But
Dr.
that's a different
Pepper.
segment.
Dr. Pepper. Well, it's almost. Dr. Pepper is a Texas brand. I joked I'm not joking when I say I'm an hour from the factory. I'm about an hour and a half from Waco, Texas. Waco, Texas is the home of Dr. Pepper. I've been to the Dr. Pepper Museum. It's right across from the Magnolia silos, if you're interested. It's a fun, it's a date idea. In the morning, you go to the bakery. In the afternoon, you go to the Dr. Pepper Museum. You know what else is in Waco, Texas? Baylor University.
Mm-hmm.
You know what Baylor University has on its campus every week? A Dr. Pepper mixer. It's Baylor Baptist University, so they don't have alcohol on campus, so they do what they can. And it's Dr. Pepper. It's just Dr. Pepper. They have a proprietary recipe, Dr. Pepper floats, that doesn't exist outside of the Baylor campus officially.
What?
And yeah. And I'm friends with Baylor grads down here. I got all of this confirmed. He's like, yeah, we're Baptist. What do you expect?
Have you had it?
No, it's on Baylor's campus. I've only been to Baylor's campus once. So that is I'm heading down to Austin in March. I have to drive through Waco. So I will be doing my best to make sure that I'll stop off on Baylor's campus and just make sure everything's up and up, okay?
Okay.
Or just have some nice Dr. Pepper. We're really going to think. Dr. Pepper's really going to try and make us think that they didn't just pick Reagan because she's going to get her PhD at Baylor.
Yeah. Trying to save themselves some... No, not really. That doesn't work that way. But
I love how quick, though,
forget
Twitter
that logic. I
devolved
didn't say anything.
into
we didn't...
all of that information. It took all of 10
minutes. Yeah, it was 5 or 10 minutes.
Come out on Twitter, and everyone is getting their pitchforks.
There was 15 angles. There was frame by frame analyses. There was bylaw pulling up. People
were like, this throw shouldn't have counted.
Yeah,
one of them bounced in the can and back out, and they're like,
"Oh yeah, I was gonna say, don't count that one." See, I was actually gonna say, no, keep that one counted. She did her best.
Yep.
It's hard. I don't know how you guys think. I'm kind of tired of the shovel passes. Throw them the chest passes.
That should be illegal.
I feel like that should be illegal. Whoever did that 2 or 3 years ago has ruined the sport. It used to be this used to be a pure competition.
This used to be a proper country.
We used to be a society. So we were going to straight to jail every Dr. Pepper exec and every single I don't know ref who pointed at Reagan, but Dr. Pepper did do the thing where they gave $100,000 to both of them. Nice. So both Kayla and Reagan have $100,000 scholarships. We're very happy for them.
Whoever came up with a tiebreaker that's who goes the day before.
The day before
film that not
that
on
person,
camera,
that person only.
That person,
yes,
straight to jail right away.
Yeah, because again, it's the
what
referees
were they even doing the day before?
Are just enforcing the rule. The rule is horrible, but the referees are just doing their job, as is everybody else. So
you wouldn't arrest a guy transporting drugs from one guy to another guy, would you?
No, certainly not.
Also, everybody in the crowd, you get out of jail free card for booing. Well done. You're true.
Good job, guys.
Yes, true.
Y'all know.
That needs to be. You're right, Johnny. That needs to be part of this segment because.
Well, no, they booed because Atlanta's a Coke country, so they're just going to boo anything Dr. Pepper does.
Why? Dr. Pepper is neutral in that war.
Oh, there was no neutrality in the soda wars.
Yeah, it's true. But Johnny, you bring up a good point because this will be a recurring segment. If you have people you want to send to jail, let us know. We'll consider it as this 3-person committee, which will work more efficiently than the college football committee. I can promise you that. But
just as arbitrary and capricious, but much more efficient.
But I think it is important that we do get out of jail free cards because, look, we're going to be putting people in jail. I don't know what to tell you. So I agree with all that. I agree that the chest pass should be ruled illegal. It probably won't be, but what a conspiracy. And props to you, internet, for bullying Dr. Pepper into doing the right thing. Go Twitter, go internet. That's right. Bully those companies into doing the right thing. You got this. So well done. Josh, thank you for that. Appreciate that. What a great start to that segment. If you also just have segment ideas, we're looking to not too much major change, but hey, look, 2023 is right around the corner, right? We're looking to mix some things up. So if you have new ideas for the podcast, or really any time, you don't have to wait till January 1st, like everyone will, to go to the gym. you just send it our way. We'd love to hear from you. We're on Twitter at Fifth Goal Sports, Instagram, all the places. So, all right. Before we move on to our other traditional segments like picks of the week and what we're following, just real quick, NFL quick hits. Johnny, how did you feel about your Bengals? That's now 3 victories for Joe Burrow over Patrick Mahomes.
Is this a new rivalry?
Joe, it's not a rivalry if the other team never wins.
Hey, got him.
But in all seriousness, I was quite surprised. It's just to defeat the Chiefs 3 times in a calendar year feels almost impossible, but it's a terrible matchup for the Chiefs. I've said it before. The Bills are a really bad matchup for the Bengals. That hasn't been proven yet, but I believe so. The Bengals are a really bad matchup for the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are a really bad matchup for the Bills. So it might really be a war for who can get that 1 seed and avoid the other 2 in the divisional round. So the race is on for the 1 seed with the Bengals beating the Chiefs, just being a game out away from the Bills. They still play the Bills as well. So everything's out in front. The Chiefs have an uphill battle now, though, losing to the Bills and Bengals in the regular season. So this will be fascinating. Lamar Jackson getting hurt. That opens up the division a little bit more of a pathway, perhaps, for the Bengals to really make sure they get that division, despite their tough schedule. Just if Lamar's not good to go, you saw what that Baltimore offense is against a really bad Denver team, given Denver's defense is really good. Anyway, thrilled. I think I need to eat a little bit of crow with Zach Taylor. I mean, I hated that 4th and 1 call, but I think Joe Burrow audibled into that call, actually. Zach came in with a masterful game plan. He outcoached Andy Reid. So Joe Burrow deserves all the props in the world. Burrow was phenomenal, fantastic. Zach Taylor coached out of his mind in that game, though. We got to make sure we give props to him. I've been very critical of Zach Taylor, so I need to make sure that I give him props when he does well. And the team has just grown. The offensive line's protecting Joe. 1 sack the whole game. 1 sack the entire time.
Yeah.
So thrilled. It's hard to believe, like 3 years ago, us Bengals fans were just in the pit of despair. And to have a guy like Joe Burrow at quarterback in Cincinnati is special.
Yeah, he's been fantastic for sure. Other quick hits in the NFL. Josh, your Pittsburgh Steelers are just kind of doing their thing, but Najee Harris decided to dribble a guy's head along his way to a run. So that was maybe one of the most ferocious stiff arms I've ever seen. So that was pretty wild.
And angry. I don't know what to tell you.
Sure is. My Detroit Lions, like we talked about the Buffalo Bills, if they find a way to win that game on Thanksgiving, you're talking about a 6-6 Detroit team who laid into Jacksonville this week. I know Trevor Lawrence. I don't know why I had a brain fart on his name. Trevor Lawrence goes down with a not great looking injury for the Jags, but the Jags not great. Lions with another big victory there. So I think they're still probably a little bit too far out of the wild card picture to do anything this season, but hopefully I just jinxed them into doing that. But certainly the trajectory for next year looks great. And the fact that the Rams have been so bad and Matt Stafford's probably done for the season.
Yeah.
They will probably have a top 5 pick that's not theirs.
Yeah.
And momentum forward, Jameson Williams played a little bit. So I'm overall pretty pumped about the Lions. The Dolphins and Cowboys, they're doing their thing, even though the Dolphins had a rough week this week. But Tyreek Hill is our current number 1 MVP candidate right now for the Dolphins with what he's done along with Tua. The Dolphins just ran over the Colts. Put a 50 piece on them. Matt Ryan may be the most valuable player for the Cowboys that game. He probably should have retired last year. Anyways, some quick hits. Other than, one thing we should mention, the San Francisco 49ers, who look like they're one of the best teams in the NFC, are losing Jimmy G for the season. And that's tough because obviously Trey Lance was the starter there to begin the year. He went down with a season-ending injury. And now, Johnny, he's back to haunt your nightmares. Brock Purdy is back, everybody. Johnny, how do you feel about Brock Purdy leading the 49ers?
Left.
We know you love that guy.
Brock Purdy does still haunt my nightmares. For context, if you've missed the last couple years of the podcast, I loved Iowa State going into Brock.
You had Iowa State in your
year.
playoff last year.
I had them in my playoff last year.
Yes, you did.
And
I had them as a dark horse.
They
Yep.
won that Fiesta Bowl, beat Oregon.
They were looking
I
good.
mean, I will say this, and if you watch the 49ers game, he played most of the game because Jimmy G got hurt early with the broken foot. He has a really high ceiling and a really low floor. He's too confident for his own good at times. Thinks he can fit that ball into any tight window. He was actually Mr. Irrelevant, which means you are the
Yep.
last player drafted, which just seems fitting for Brock. So, hey, I hope he can figure it out. San Fran, don't get Baker. Don't get any of these other guys. Just ride with Brock, man. You probably can't win a Super Bowl no matter what anymore. But with Brock, you can probably win a playoff game. So ride him out, man. But the NFC, man, it really felt like, oh, okay, like we got the 49ers and the Eagles. We got like two legitimate teams here. And then with Jimmy G getting hurt, it's just hard to see them going and winning a Super Bowl now, which is brutal because that roster is fantastic.
Yeah. Do you think it is? Did the Dallas Cowboys elevate to that second team in the NFC? Is it Eagles Cowboys?
See, every time you want to buy into the Cowboys, they just beat up on the bottom dwellers. Can I see you? And I said all that's all being said that you beat Minnesota, but Minnesota plays every game one possession, every single game. Does anybody really trust Minnesota and Kirk Cousins? It feels like it's Philly, and I know Tampa's record's really bad, but I'm terrified that like 8-9 Tampa Bay team's going to win the NFC South, and then Tom Brady's going to get to play Geno Smith and I don't know, Jalen Hurts on his way to the Super Bowl. And no offense to those guys, but that's the easiest path in the history of the NFL to the Super Bowl out of the wild card spot. So, well, they'll be a division winner, but they'll play in the wild card round, of course. So I really think it's Philly and there's a gap right now. And I honestly wouldn't have said Philly had a gap until this week when they showed a lot of maturity in that win against Tennessee, just beating them down at their own game.
Yeah, for sure. Well, obviously, with college football wrapping up, we will get more into the NFL discussion in weeks ahead with the playoffs looming in about a month, a little more than that. So we'll go back to that. So, guys, it is time for picks of the week. Last week, Josh, your 1-0 pick, you just kept riding with it, kept getting you points.
It's gonna work out sometime.
Yeah, the U.S. beating Iran 1-0. So our current scoreboard is myself with 48, Josh with 47, Johnny with 44. Josh, nice comeback. You're right there.
Thank you.
This week we are picking, of course, the Army-Navy game. I'm going to pick Army even though we're in a similar situation to last year where Navy was really struggling last year. I believe they might have been 2-9 going into that game and found a way to beat Army. It's kind of similar where you think Army probably has a better team, a better chance to win, but Navy gave teams a lot of problems this year. They didn't have a great season, but we're in a lot of close games. Who did they knock? They beat UCF, I believe, this year. That was like a big top 25 win for them. So I think it's going to be extremely close. Please, if you are free, do yourself a favor and watch this game. It is incredible. It's deserving of our attention. I'm going to pick Army, although I don't know if I feel very good about it.
I'm also going to pick Army. Army's the best, the better team here. But I am worried because of that Navy win over UCF, Aaron, that you just mentioned. I know UCF's quarterbacks have been hurt really here at the end of the year, so that had some effect on the game. But Navy could be peaking at the right time. So this is a fascinating game. Aaron, remind me, do either of these teams have a chance to make a bowl game with a win?
I don't think so. So technically, Army would get their 6th win with a victory, but they played 2 FCS schools, and you have to get a waiver from the NCAA, and the NCAA said no. Which I might have a bone to pick. Like if you look, there's 5 and 7 teams getting into a bowl games, and good for them. But put 6 and 6 Army in a bowl game. What are we doing?
Why are we not giving? I mean, they gave I understand. They gave a waiver to New Mexico State because San Jose State canceled on them.
No issue.
So that would have been a terrible reason to not let them go. But what you said, Aaron, in years where there's 5 and 7 teams going, give them a waiver.
Yeah.
I don't even blame them having a waiver process for it. but because they shouldn't go instead of other 6-6 teams, I would say.
Yeah,
Like that's
absolutely.
an easy tiebreaker.
Yeah. Yep.
But if we're sending 5-7 teams, send them through. Send Army through.
Yep.
It's our armed forces, man. Let them play a bowl game.
Yep. They are 5-6. Navy is currently 4-7. Josh, who are you picking?
Listen, Florida should have known better. For being as surrounded by water that it is, you would think they would know better than to
True.
pick the specific branch of the military that they did to play. So, listen, if we're gonna take land over sea, I love water. I love the oceans. I'm a lake guy personally, but they're all great. I'll take my water boys. I'll take my water soldiers every day, all day, every day.
But Josh, Army swimming and diving team actually beat Navy this week.
They did.
And that's why they're going to win. They have to reclaim something.
There you go. Josh, I think
it's a matter of pride now.
I think it's a good pick. Here's the last 3 games for Navy. A 10-point loss to Cincinnati, a 3-point loss to Notre Dame, and a 3-point win to UCF. They've also had they had a bye week, obviously this week because the conference championships. They also had a bye week the last week. So this is a team that's got plenty of time for. Now, I know Army also didn't play in conference championship Saturday, but this is a team that essentially had 2 bye weeks to prepare for Army. So this could be a really good pick, and we'll see what happens. So we're tracking that. We're tracking the women's volleyball tournament. We're, of course, still tracking the World Cup. We've got Brazil, who's looking good. I also realized I never mentioned it on the podcast, but I originally picked France, and then we found out that Benzema was injured. So I texted Josh and Johnny that I was picking Argentina instead, which, based on how France looked at, I feel a little bit bad about that. And also, Argentina and Brazil ended up on the same side of the bracket. So that's a little unfortunate for me, but anyways, we'll update you there as we know more.
Still better than my Belgium pick, Aaron. Don't feel too
that's
bad.
true. That's true.
It happens.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap up this episode with, of course, what we're following. And I'll start because I'm covering a college football thing. I said I was talking about kind of the coaching carousel. Well, the Fenway Bowl is going to happen this year, guys, hopefully, because 2020 got canceled. 2021 both got canceled due to COVID. Now, this is called the Fenway Bowl because they are playing inside Fenway Park in Boston. So that alone is interesting because who wants to play
dual-use football, baseball fields? This has gone really well historically.
Well, yeah, and in December, so just lovely balmy conditions, I'm sure, in Boston. But the matchup is between Cincinnati and Louisville. For those uninitiated, back in the Big East days, these two teams, still are in basketball and still are generally in every other sport, but bitter rivals. They play for the old Keg of Nails trophy. It's an absolute tragedy that rivalry went away with all the conference realignment. So they're playing again. Awesome. But with the coaching carousel, remember that Luke Fickell is going to Wisconsin to be their head coach. Louisville's coach, Scott Satterfield. Let me get this pronunciation. Is it Scott Satterfield?
Satterfield, I
okay.
believe.
Thank you. Louisville's coach, Scott Satterfield, left Louisville and is taking the Cincinnati job. That was just announced. Now, because we covered Cincinnati, we got a close look at this team. Like I shouted out Miami last week, shout out to the folks at Cincinnati for hosting us several times throughout the year. Really appreciate that. It was really cool to cover this team. I don't love the hire for the Bearcats because here's what you're hearing from the Cardinals fans. They're thinking, oh, great, we got rid of him. That's never good. That's almost never good when a team is happy to see their coach go to a different job. So, and maybe it'll turn out fine. But Cincinnati's about to jump up to the Big 12. There was reports that maybe Satterfield was out of there anyways and took this opportunity to go to Cincinnati before he could get fired because given the quarterback he's had for the last few years, Louisville has kind of been very underwhelming. They've had one of the most talented quarterbacks that you've probably not heard of in Malik Cunningham. So all around, it's bizarre. Bitter rivals, and guess what? Josh, because they play in a baseball stadium, they share the same sideline. There's only one sideline, so they're just going to split it halfway down the middle. Cincinnati will be on the left side. Louisville will be on the right side. What could possibly go wrong with two teams on the same sideline? And I know it's been done before. This is not the first bowl game in a baseball stadium. It's not the only one even this year. But just there's so many wild things. I believe Satterfield should have to sit there on what this is Saturday. This is a week from Saturday.
Right on the line.
Yes, right on the line, and he should have to coach both teams. Thank you, Johnny. Yes, this is obvious. What an opportunity. You talk about bowl games, and no one likes bowl games. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is people's perception that no one likes bowl games. If you run across someone that says there are too many bowl games, that person is basically the equivalent of Scrooge on Christmas.
So we have get out of jail free cards, but we will also have go straight to jail cards.
Correct.
And you can hand one right to them.
Yes, you are right. Yes, that's right. If you hear someone say there's too many bowl games, you send them straight to jail. You send them to us, we send them straight to jail. So all around, what a matchup. This is going to be so fun. Who knows who's even going to be playing because the transfer portal is insane. But watch the Fenway Bowl. It'll be nuts. And for more transfer portal information, Johnny, what do you got?
So let's talk about the transfer portal, and then I'm going to talk about what should have been another former rivalry reborn in a bowl game. So I'll go fast. Last year, there were 3,000 players who put their name in the transfer portal. Now, with having 253 FBS and FCS schools, that's roughly about, I think if my math's right, about 12 per team. If you think about that, about 12 players in every team are jumping into the portal every single year. So let's put that rein in when people are panicking of like, it's total free agency. I think there probably does need to be a little bit more restrictions and guardrails put around transferring, not to restrict the kids, but you don't want just blatant free agency, I guess I would say, in this situation. But when you put it more like 12 to a team, that doesn't sound as crazy and insane. And of course, there's more than that on certain teams when you have coaching changes, of course, and that will skew the data. And then you have other teams that you lose maybe a handful. So crazy transfer portal news right now. Just a few big names. Let's just throw some big ones out. We have DJ Uiagalelei out of Clemson. He's in the portal. Devin Leary is in the portal. NC State's quarterback. Spencer Sanders, Oklahoma State's quarterback, is in the portal. Keaton Slovis is in the portal. Pitt's quarterback. I know I was ranting about we need to make sure that we're talking about people other than the quarterbacks, and then I listed just a bunch of quarterbacks in the transfer portal for college football. There are so many great players on here, offensive linemen, leading tacklers on teams, outstanding. Alabama's, I believe, their best offensive guard on the O-line is in the portal right now. Everybody has somebody in the portal. Look to have teams like Colorado with Coach Prime there.
By the way, breaking news on that front, Kent State's coach, Sean Lewis, is taking the offensive coordinator job there, Johnny. So there's an update.
Oh, shoot. Kent State's he is bringing his own luggage.
Head coach is leaving for an offensive coordinator job with Prime.
What a get from Prime.
Yep.
He's going to have their best recruiting class that they've had in decades, probably there. He's going to.
Did you watch his like intro talk?
Oh yeah, fantastic,
dude! I'm ready. I'm so excited.
I love it, but he was basically like,
"Hey, guess what? Colorado's been bad for like the past ever. Yeah, they've earned all the snark he's about to give them.
Yes,
yeah." He's just get on board or get out. I get that. With the transfer portal, you can be that way now too. Like, get out. Make room for somebody who wants to be here. Colorado will be fantastic. USC has so many holes to fill. I know they had a great season, but USC is going to clean up in that portal as well. Look at teams with quarterbacks sticking around. Maybe even Washington with Michael Penix saying he's not declaring for the draft and he's staying. You'll always have Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, probably Tennessee throw in there, piecemealing, seeing if they can't find just a few guys to fill in some perceived gaps. Of course, Ohio State and those other teams that are currently in the playoff, you're probably going to hear less news about that, but they're still on the recruiting trail. Don't get me wrong. They'll still pick those guys up. Obviously, they won't be able to play this season. Now, so you're going to have some great teams like that, teams on the rise. Maybe even South Carolina can pull some guys in and things like that. So you'll see some teams on the rise with new coaches like Coach Prime out in Colorado, which, by the way, I'm psyched about. I love Colorado. I have a soft spot for them. Beautiful campus, booming state. Boulder is fantastic. There's a lot more college and athletic talent in the state than you would think. While it's not Texas, California, Florida, Georgia, Ohio, Louisiana, it's still very talent rich. I think Colorado is going to be great in a few years. Just give Prime some time. Anyway, So that's transfer portal. So that's insane. As we get into bowl season, that's going to be really hard to track and know who's playing on which team. And we'll do our best. We'll do our best with all of that. But it's going to be a ton of fun. Transfer portal is wild. So if you're a team looking for a quarterback or another player, we have a ton of reporters that are doing a great job just tracking that stuff. So it's beautiful for Twitter. This is what Twitter was made for. It's a transfer portal. But last thing, really quick, I know I'm going really long. I have a big problem, and this is my honorary straight to jail, is the University of Missouri ducking Kansas in, is it the Liberty Bowl? Liberty Bowl, right?
Sure.
Or Independent. Yeah. They're ducking. This used to be the border war between Kansas and Missouri. There's a history there. Look it up if you're interested. Fantastic, like low-key rivalry, right? Like it's on that Louisville, Cincinnati, Kagan Ales type of rivalry, but they played it every year. Great rivalry. There was a chance with both teams being bowl eligible and both being 6-6 that this was an even matchup. It would be a great game to play. Kansas said, sign us up. We're good for that. And Missouri said no. Boo you, Missouri.
Yep.
Straight to jail.
Yep.
You hate fun.
Now, consolation, Johnny. We do get in the Liberty Bowl, Kansas still, but we also get Arkansas. So I've got two propositions for you guys. Number one, in the Liberty Bowl, the loser of Kansas and Arkansas has to change their name. So if Arkansas loses, you do become Arkansas. If Kansas loses, you become Kansas. Kansas. Yeah, that's the rule. Now, secondarily, in the Orange Bowl, we have an all-orange matchup between Clemson and Tennessee. Same thing. Yes. If you lose, you have to adopt the other team's color of orange. These are the rules. We have made them. We expect everyone to follow them. Also, now, Orange Bowl, just invite who cares about conference?
Orange Bowl.
Yes.
You know what I want?
Yes.
I want it to be 100% orange.
Yes.
I want both teams to play their home uniforms, and I want the field orange.
Oh, yeah. Now you're thinking, Josh.
I want it to be this Boise State unwatchable piece of media. I want no one to know what's going on.
Amen to that.
Oh my gosh. Where's it being played technically? How much money would it be? You can orange. You can get a bunch of cans of spray paint for not that much money.
Or they should play in the. What they should do is they should play in Syracuse's Carrier Dome, spray that thing orange, even more orange. Have their orange mascot running around. Have the Orange Bowl mascot running around, just all orange. Yes. So there's your.
You want people to watch bowl games? Make an all orange. Make an all orange team.
That's right.
Make an all orange game.
Yep.
Guys. Okay, first off, I'm calling an audible here.
Okay.
I could talk about the 1930 World Cup, and it was crazy. The refs wore suits. I believe the Bolivians came in berets. Like, it was beautiful.
Sounds
But can we talk about how... I want to talk about why it really is called soccer.
Please do.
Johnny, you're a history guy. Okay, first off, real quick. Chess Heads, welcome to Chess Heads. It's a podcast, one of the podcasts highlighting the greatest stuff that you don't normally get to see. Chess.com and Magnus Carlsen colluding together, like in a joint statement 2 days ago, say, hey, please, telling the courts, hey, please dismiss this lawsuit. The lawsuit that specifically states that Chess.com and Magnus Carlsen have, quote, colluded to blacklist Hans Niemann from chess. This is not a good look, guys. Niemann might win this just because Carlsen and Chess.com are overplaying their hands. Like, remember, they have like a multi-million-dollar partnership that they're working on. Like, this is... I might be rooting for the alleged cheater in this case. This is crazy. Wow. This is so much stuff going on. This happens like, what, 6 months ago or 5 months ago, and we're still talking about it? Crazy. Okay, out of Chess Heads. Also, just look up the 1930
I might have to make
Cup.
a TikTok about that. That sounds very
The Egyptians missed the boats and didn't make it.
Oh, no.
Like... No. They were supposed to be, they were the sole African team represented. They missed the boats because all the other teams went on the same boat, and then they just hit, like, all the European teams were on the same boat. They went over.
Wow.
They stopped in Rio real quick to pick up the Brazilians, and then they went to Uruguay was hosting that year. Like,
It's a long boat
The
ride.
Egyptians overslept or something. I don't know.
Dang.
An American coach, like there was so long story short, Argentina and US in the semifinals. Hey, US used to be in the semifinals at one point. It was a 6-1 loss. The US.
That's about right.
That's, to be fair, on brand. There was a fight that involved a broken leg and missing teeth, and a United States manager came out, tripped over himself, and broke his bottle of chloroform, knocking himself out.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, why do you have a bottle
Wait,
of
hang on.
Why? No, no context needed. He had a classic, just your classic 1930s
As
in
you
Uruguay bottle of chloroform.
Yeah.
Knocked himself out, had to be revived on the field. Argentina made it to the final. They lost to Uruguay. The Argentina fans were on a boat. The boat got lost in fog, so it came a day late, and they found out they lost when they got on shore. Riots ensued. Guys, it is a crazy. Please look it up. It's fantastic. Finally, it's called soccer, and this is why. Used to be ancient games that looked very much like, actually, hold on. Because I'm calling an audible, I don't have this in front of me. I have the word for soccer that like everything originated from. Give me just 1 sec.
Well,
I have to go to my etymology.
Australia and the U.S. agree on, I think it should be taken as truth.
Yes.
Absolute truth. It should not be questioned under any circumstance. Soccer took it on the chin, though, on Saturday.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. I'm back. Okay, guys, it's actually called soccer. The U.S. is right. And Australia.
Yes.
Correct? Soccer. Originally, an old mid-1800s word, saka. A shortened form of association football. Back in the day, there used to be two forms of football. Formerly, like long form, two forms of football. There was association football, and then there was rugby football. Similar rules, of course, when they first started out back, a few hundred years ago. But as they naturally progressed in regional differences and all that stuff, you know how things happen. We don't play with real baskets anymore in basketball. You can throw the ball, you can pass the ball, and, same thing with football. Gridiron football, American football. But what happens was association football, which you can just see if you start slurring the words together, association football, soccer. There it is. Easy enough. And rugby football. So that just started getting called rugby. The other one started getting called soccer. Now, rugby football came over in the mid to late 1800s. You have, all the Ivy Leagues starting to make gridiron football using rugby-esque rules at the time. And so instead of just calling it rugby football, it was just called football, but with the rugby origin. So by the time that football started being popular in America, they became the default word. Soccer was obviously just always going to be called soccer in the States because they already had football. England used to call, and I got to double check on my specific sources, but you can go back just a few decades, and England called it soccer for a while. And you know why they flipped to football? Because they didn't want to be like the Americans.
Mm-hmm. Can't say.
And to this day, I get it.
Understandable.
Understandable. Have a good day. By every source that is on my etymology websites, soccer is a shortened form of association football. It is the legit and true and only name that sport that we're playing right now in the FIFA World Cup should be called. We can't call it football. We can't call it football in the United States. We already have football.
Take that, David Beckham.
Take that, David Beckham.
Right.
Go back to Qatar and talk about other food. Go do another ad for him, David. It's called soccer now.
That's right. Agreed.
So there it is.
Yes.
Three what I'm followings. Guys, lots of stuff has happened this week. I need to be writing papers, but instead learning about everything else.
Yeah, as you should. Yeah, it was a busy week. So we appreciate you listening to this show. We'll be back next week. I think if we're on top of it, we're actually going to have 2 shows for you next week. One will be our normal show, and then we're going to go ahead and, like we did last year, upload our bowl preview show that Johnny and I will hopefully do next week. Now, I'll just give you a disclaimer now. We just talked about the number of players that entered the transfer portal. I can guarantee you we're going to miss some players. We're going to talk about some teams, or just simply in the time between us recording and the episode going live, there's probably going to be hundreds more players transferring, not playing in their bowl games, whatever. But we're going to do our best to break it down and at least give you some fun matchups and some other stuff to be watching for this bowl season. So that'll be next week. Again, we'll cover Army Navy. We'll cover the World Cup. We'll be kind of previewing really the quarterfinals. The semifinals will almost be here. Maybe they will be here by the time we record our show next week. So as always, we encourage you to hang out with us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, on TikTok. We're on all of those. And if future editing errands on top of it, then maybe we'll have a TikTok about that wild 1930 World Cup. That'd be kind of fun. So guys, any last thoughts?
It will be the most arbitrary and capricious bowl mania selection ever. So
yes, it will.
We're talking mascot battle reasons. We're talking location and whether that their nickname could survive in that habitat.
Yes.
Everything's on the table and how we'll pick. And we'll probably pick better this year in doing so.
Johnny, thanks for bringing that up. That reminds me, I forgot to mention, we will have our bowl challenge back again. That should be live by the time this podcast comes out. If you're not watching live on YouTube, which you can, we're live every Monday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. But that will be there. There will be some sort of prize for the winner. I have to give a shout out to Ryan Peoples, who won our regular season college pick'em, and I have to give a shout out to myself because Johnny, I was the winner of our individual bet. The loser has to eat mayonnaise ice cream. So I'm looking forward to making some mayonnaise ice cream and watching you eat it. So that'll be fun. So make sure you follow us on social media for whenever we find time to make some mayonnaise ice cream. Looking forward to that.
So. I am not.
It'll be a great time.
Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps up this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Again, follow us on social media. Let us know who you want to put in jail, and we'll consider the options here as the committee. All right. We appreciate you guys listening. Really means a lot. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.
I love this, putting people in jail.
I do too. This is
so good.
It's what I was